In the center of Shinjuku, Tokyo, once a beacon of noise and motion, the world had gone unnaturally quiet. The energetic streets, once alive with the rhythm of urban life, were now gripped by an eerie stillness. Cars sat idle, their engines off, doors left ajar. Bicycles lay toppled on the pavement. But it was the people who made the silence most haunting. They stood motionless, their routines forgotten, drawn by something impossible in the sky. Suspended above them, blotting out the heavens, loomed an enormous gate. It hung like a black omen, towering as high as the skyscrapers around it. No one screamed. No one ran. They simply stared, eyes wide with disbelief, breath stolen by a thick, oppressive air. The city's familiar sounds had vanished, swallowed by something greater, an unseen force that now ruled the skyline and the streets below. Elsewhere, in the sealed-off meeting halls where Japan's most elite hunters gathered, tension crackled like static in the air. Representatives from the nation's strongest guilds, Blades, Phantoms, Invincible Kings, and Snowy Mountains, had all convened. It was rare for such powerful factions to sit at the same table, a clear sign of the looming threat. Whispers of unease circulated between them, but the murmuring stopped the moment Sugimoto Reiji entered. Flanked by Hoshino, Kumamoto, and Tawata, Sugimoto walked with the weight of a man who had seen too much. Once vice president of the Blade Guild, he had inherited leadership after the tragic losses suffered during the catastrophic Jeju Island raid. 7 of their top S-rank hunters had perished, including the legendary Goto Ryuji. The shock still rippled through the hunter world. Now, as they passed, other guild members exchanged quiet glances and bold mutterings. Some saw an opportunity in the Blade Guild's loss, a chance to ascend in the power hierarchy. The murmurs didn't go unnoticed. Hoshino's eyes narrowed, frustration painted clearly across her face. There had been a time when such disrespect would have been unthinkable. Tawata spoke in low tones of rumors. Whispers of the Phantom Guild possibly merging with the Snowy Mountain Guild, a merger that would give them 4 S-rank hunters, equaling the Blades. But Sugimoto didn't flinch. "Numbers don't determine strength," he said coldly. "Even 100 guilds combined wouldn't eclipse the Blade." His voice silenced the whispers, at least for now. Meanwhile, inside the Prime Minister's residence, the storm was brewing. The walls trembled not with tremors, but with pressure, the kind only a nation's crisis could create. The Prime Minister stood, eyes blazing with fury, and slammed his fist onto the polished wood of the council table. "Why hasn't the Hunters Association responded?" he shouted. "An S-rank gate has appeared in the heart of Tokyo, and you're giving me silence?" Everyone present felt the weight of the moment. No answers, no plan. Just the looming threat of the unknown, waiting behind the gate that had cast its shadow over the city, and perhaps the entire country. The Prime Minister's frustration boiled over as he slammed his hand on the conference table. "I want answers. What measures are being taken to stop a dungeon break? You all know what happens if we fail." Matsumoto tried to restore order, raising his voice slightly above the tension that filled the room. "Even S-rank hunters won't be enough. An S-rank gate isn't something that can be dealt with by brute strength alone. Our real concern is the national-level hunters." But his words didn't soothe the room. The other guild leaders exchanged sharp glances, their patience thinning. They hadn't been summoned to restate what they already knew. Everyone in that room remembered Jeju Island, how things had spiraled into chaos despite their best efforts. Now wasn't the time for pessimism or politics. What they needed was a plan. One of the guild leaders proposed reaching out to Thomas Andre, one of the most powerful hunters on the planet. It was a desperate idea and a short-lived one. The budget required to bring in someone of Andre's caliber was astronomical, and with the global surge in gate appearances, even the richest nations were reluctant to part with their elite. Everyone knew that hunters like Andre weren't taking side jobs anymore. They were defending their own countries. The Prime Minister frowned. "Do we even know how many hunters would risk their lives to enter an S-rank gate right now?" Silence followed. The weight of fear and uncertainty hung in the air. Then Sugimoto stepped forward. His voice was calm, firm. "There is someone who might take the job, for the right price," he said. That got their attention. "Yuri Olaf," Sugimoto continued, "a barrier-type specialist. He may not be a household name, but his abilities are exactly what we need. He doesn't care about politics or national borders. He works for pay, and his barriers are strong enough to hold back even an S-rank horde." Eyes turned towards Sugimoto with mixed emotions: curiosity, skepticism, and a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, in a quieter part of Tokyo, Jin Woo drove back to the guild office, his thoughts adrift. The city outside the windshield moved in a blur, but his focus was inward, level 101. He still found it hard to believe how far he'd come. Not long ago, he'd unlocked the key to the Katanen Temple upon hitting level 100. Since then, his job-specific skills had surged in power, evolving with each fight. Now, at 101, his anticipation grew. What would level 102 bring? As the car slid into the underground garage, Jin Woo thought of Jin Ho. His right-hand man, now Vice Guild Master, had been shouldering responsibilities with unwavering determination. Jin Woo appreciated his drive, but it was clear. They needed more hands if the guild was to grow. He made up his mind. Recruitment would begin immediately. Stepping out of the car, he caught sight of a figure standing near the building entrance. Familiar. Still. Watching. It was Gina. The moment their eyes met, she flinched, visibly startled, and turned on her heel to walk away. Jin Woo narrowed his eyes, intrigued. Without hesitation, he activated Flash, appearing before her in an instant, cutting off her escape. She froze. He tilted his head, confused. "Why were you near the guild office?" he asked gently. Blushing, Gina averted her gaze. "I left my car here. Last time, we used shadow exchange, remember?" Jin Woo's features softened. That made sense. But something else was bothering her. He could see it. Then she hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you free right now?" Jin Woo blinked. Whatever was coming next, he could feel it. It wasn't just about a parked car. A flurry of emotions churned within Cha Hai-in as she stood before Jin Woo. Her mind raced. Jealousy over a photo he had taken with Yoo Soo-hyun, confusion about her own feelings, and insecurity that despite being an S-rank hunter, she hadn't been asked to join his guild. The questions gnawed at her. Why her and not me? But she pushed those thoughts aside. For now. She had come for a reason. "I have a message for you," she said, steadying her voice. "From Min Byung-gyu." Jin Woo's expression shifted at the mention of the healer. His usual calm gave way to a flicker of surprise and concern. Without a word, he gestured for her to follow him upstairs. Inside the guild office, Hai-in was struck by the stillness of the space. It was oddly quiet, empty. She realized the Vice Guild Master, Jin Ho, was still out handling business. The sudden awareness that she and Jin Woo were alone made her heart skip. Her nerves climbed, but Jin Woo remained focused, already settling into his chair. "How did Byung-gyu leave you a message?" he asked. Hai-in took a deep breath. It wasn't normal. She explained the strange event, how, while she was alone, she had heard a voice. A shadow had risen from the ground, taking the shape of Min Byung-gyu. He hadn't looked like a memory. He felt present, as though pulled back into the world, not by fate, but by something else entirely. His words had been urgent. "He said there's danger inside you," she said quietly. "He said it was like he had been brought back to serve you. And the terrifying part? He was content with it. He felt peace in that servitude." Jin Woo listened silently, the weight of her words pressing against him. Byung-gyu's final message had been cut off. A sudden flash of light had swallowed the vision, leaving only his echo behind, one final warning about Jin Woo's power. And the army that stood behind him. The warning haunted Hai-in. And now, it haunted Jin Woo. Later, Inside a dungeon, the familiar sounds of combat rang through the corridors as Jin Woo moved swiftly beside Jin Ho. Blades clashed, monsters fell, but Jin Woo's mind was elsewhere. Hai-In's words echoed within him. Danger within me, revived to serve me, content in servitude. What did it mean? He couldn't ignore it anymore. Uncovering the truth behind his powers was no longer just about growing stronger. It was something deeper, more urgent. Jinho's voice broke through his thoughts, light and nostalgic. Man, this reminds me of our early days. Remember those C-rank dungeons? You were still figuring things out, and I was clinging to life. Jin Woo gave a faint smile. Don't talk with your mouth full. Jinho grinned, chewing anyway. You know, with how powerful your shadows are now, you could just send them in and handle everything. You barely need to lift a finger. But Jin Woo shook his head. It doesn't work like that. I don't gain as much experience if I'm not involved, and the soldiers can be unpredictable if I'm not watching. Even now, with power that rivaled nations, Jin Woo knew there were limits, and secrets he hadn't yet uncovered. And with Hai-In's warning fresh in his mind, he couldn't afford to be careless. There was more at stake than victory. There was truth, and it was waiting in the shadows. As Jin Woo mulled over Hai-In's ominous warning, the sound of crunching bones snapped him back to the present. One of his shadow ants was hungrily devouring the carcass of a fallen magic beast. Jinho recoiled with a groan. Ugh, do they have to eat like that? Jin Woo smirked slightly, unfazed. The mood lightened, and Jinho took the chance to shift the topic. How's Gina doing? She's still recovering. Rest is what she needs most right now, Jin Woo replied. But she's safe. My most reliable shadow is watching over her. As he spoke, Jin Woo realized he hadn't checked in on his sister in a while. Closing his eyes, he activated shadow senses to tap into the vision of his guard, Beru. Through Beru's eyes, he saw Gina sleeping peacefully under the warm glow of her room's bedside lamp. But something else caught his attention. The TV screen flickered with the overly dramatic climax of a historical drama. And there was Beru, sitting upright, completely absorbed and speaking to himself in a tone so formal it bordered on theatrical. Jin Woo couldn't help but laugh silently. So that's where the dramatics came from. Too many late-night TV marathons. Satisfied that Gina was fine, he turned his senses toward his mother, then broadened the reach slightly. That was when he heard water. His brows furrowed. Is it raining? Number. The sound was too close, too specific. And then he saw her. Hai-In, mid-bath, steam rising, skin flushed by the heat. Jin Woo's eyes shot open, heart skipping a beat as he severed the link immediately. The embarrassment hit him like a brick. Across from him, Jinho raised an eyebrow. Did you just zone out? He asked, tilting his head. Jin Woo cleared his throat. It's nothing. But the thought lingered. Maybe he owed her dinner. As an apology. Before he could get lost in the awkward spiral, Jinho leaned forward with a more serious tone. You heard about the gate in Shinjuku, right? S rank. Japan's got 3 days or there's a dungeon break. They're bringing in hunters from everywhere. I heard, Jin Woo said. They contacted me. Are you going? Jin Woo didn't answer right away. There were other priorities on his mind. Instead, he summoned an object into his hand. It appeared with a faint hiss, a sleek obsidian key etched with ancient glyphs. The black key, its label, key to the Kartanen Temple. He stared at it in silence. It wasn't just a key, it was an invitation, one extended directly from the system itself. Jin Woo had long wondered about the source of his powers, the secrets behind the dungeons, the truth behind the Shadow Monarch title. That temple, it might finally hold the answers. Only one day remained. But for now, there was still work to be done. Let's finish up, Jin Woo said, standing. Jinho, quickly stuffing the last bite of food into his mouth, leapt to his feet. On it! Meanwhile, in Japan, a meteor storm was brewing. Cameras flashed as Yuri Olaf stepped off the plane and into the center of global attention. The Russian S-rank hunter wore a confident smile, basking in the sea of reporters and flashing lights. Questions were shouted, microphones thrust toward him, but Yuri raised a hand, silencing them with ease. His reputation preceded him. With calm assurance, he addressed the press. "I'm here to stop the gate. That's all you need to know." To him, sealing an S-rank gate was just another mission. But to the rest of the world, it might be the last line of defense before catastrophe. Yuri Olaf stood before a swarm of reporters, his trademark smile unwavering as cameras flashed and questions flew. Calmly, he raised his hand and began to explain the plan. A magic circle, massive in scale, would be drawn around the S-rank gate. By channeling mana into the formation, Yuri intended to suppress whatever lay beyond its ominous threshold. It wasn't the first time he'd done this. His voice was steady, almost casual, as he assured the public that the barrier would hold. "But how will you maintain it alone?" one reporter pressed. "Can even a world-class support type handle something of this scale without help?" Yuri's smile didn't falter. Sustaining the barrier isn't about brute strength, it's about preparation. He elaborated. The circle would draw power from its environment, specifically from monocrystals strategically placed around Tokyo. Once activated, the array would absorb the crystal's mana like fuel, gradually evolving into a powerful shield. "Like turning the ignition on a cold morning," he explained. "Once it starts, it builds." With arms outstretched and confidence radiating from every word, he declared, "I'm going to save this city. Remember that." Later that day, Yuri arrived at the Hunter Association headquarters in Tokyo. The air inside was tense, thick with anticipation. Guild leaders sat around the meeting table, their expressions stern. But Yuri walked in as if he owned the room. The world's strongest support-type hunter poured himself a drink before offering the briefest of introductions. Then, wasting no time, he laid it all out. "I reviewed the Blade Guild's plan," he said after a sip. "Evacuating civilians was smart. But your biggest problem? Manpower. Sugimoto, now the de facto leader of the Blade Guild, confirmed it. Of all Japan's S-rank hunters, only 6 were available for the raid. Each guild had been forced to hold one back to guard other gates opening across the nation. Even the Blade Guild, Japan's strongest, could only spare 3. Yuri exhaled through his nose and smirked. He slammed his empty glass on the table, startling a few of the younger hunters. "You're underestimating the threat," he said, tone sharper now. "With this level of force, you won't hold the line." Then he named his price, $10 million per day. Gasps rippled through the room. "That's how much it'll cost to keep the gate sealed," Yuri continued, comparing himself favorably to Thomas Andre. "If the US is willing to pay triple that for Andre, consider this a bargain. I'm offering you a future. Don't make the mistake of haggling with it." Sugimoto froze, stunned at the audacity. Hoshino turned toward Tawata with urgency. "What did he just say?" Tawata, still processing, responded hesitantly, Something about saving the country. But it doesn't sound cheap." Then Yuri laughed. Not a chuckle, a booming laugh that filled the room and cut through the tension like a blade. $10 million a day. Pay it or gamble your entire nation to save a little money. The room fell into silence, his laughter echoing long after he stopped. Yuri Olaf's laughter lingered in the room like a foul stench. He leaned back in his chair, arms stretched wide in exaggerated confidence, mocking the room full of Japan's top hunters. "Well," he said with a smirk, "do you really think you're in a position to be choosy? You should be on your knees begging. And even then—" His eyes gleamed with arrogance. "Licking my boots might not be enough to sway me." The provocation hung in the air like a live wire. Sugimoto narrowed his eyes, his voice calm but cutting. "You speak as if no one here is your equal. Do you honestly believe your strength is that far beyond ours?" Yuri didn't hesitate. "Believe it?" He scoffed. "I know it. I'm leagues above the rest of you. Especially the clown standing behind you." The jab struck a nerve. Hoshino and Tawata, proud S-rank hunters in their own right, couldn't stand by any longer. They lunged toward him, only to freeze mid-motion. The room fell into stunned silence. A sudden, unseen force wrapped around the two hunters, locking them in place. Neither could move, their bodies suspended as though caught in invisible chains.
"Try it,"
Yuri taunted, voice smooth with amusement. "Go on. Move even an inch." Hoshino's eyes widened in disbelief. No spell cast, no chant spoken, just pure domination. "How?" he breathed. "What kind of barrier is this?" Tawata's body trembled, not from fear, but frustration. She felt shackled, helpless, as though her power had been turned against her. Around them, the Japanese hunters stood frozen, not by force, but by shock. They'd never seen anything like it. Yuri stood slowly, brushing dust from his coat as if the encounter bored him. "I'll keep your little gate sealed," he said with mock generosity. "And I'll even forgive this sad little attempt at pride. No charge." His grin was venomous, but Sugimoto didn't flinch. His gaze remained locked on Yuri, mind racing. He understood now. Yuri's arrogance wasn't just bravado. It was backed by undeniable power. And though the price was steep, Japan had few options left. The government would balk. But if this was the only way to stop the disaster, they had no choice. After a tense pause, Sugimoto gave a single nod. "Give me a moment to contact the Prime Minister." Yuri smiled, victorious. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." And with that, the wheels were set in motion. Japan's future placed in the hands of a man who demanded millions and offered salvation wrapped in condescension. Jin Woo had attempted to slip out of the apartment quietly, but his mother, Kyung-hee, called out to him before he could leave. He paused, sitting back down for a moment. Concerned, she asked if there was anything she should worry about. Jin Woo quickly reassured her, explaining that he'd just had an appointment, promising he'd be back soon. With that, he left the apartment. Stepping outside, Jin Woo summoned the black key. The time had finally come. A notification appeared, showing the location where the key could be used. To his surprise, it was near his sister Gina's school. At the school gate, a couple of Hunter Association employees were discussing the situation. They were relieved that the school was closed, commenting that they wouldn't be able to handle the students if they were present. They also noted that a gate had appeared at the same spot once again. Cloaked in stealth, Jin Woo approached unnoticed. When one of the employees stepped forward to stop him, Jin Woo lowered his hood, revealing himself with a calm but commanding presence. The female employee recognized him from a previous encounter at a B-rank gate and was surprised to see him. Jin Woo asked how long the gate had been open, and she informed him that it had been 3 days. Jin Woo quickly realized the system had revealed the gate's location, but not the exact timing of its appearance. With 3 days having already passed, Jin Woo immediately sensed danger. Although the gate was classified as C rank, something felt off. He asked if any hunters had entered the gate, and the employee confirmed that an assault squad had gone in 2 hours ago. Jin Woo, without hesitation, instructed her to call them back, warning that the entire squad was in danger and would not survive if they stayed inside. The employee, confused and alarmed by Jin Woo's urgency, pointed out that the gate was only C rank. But Jin Woo, focused on rescuing the hunters, walked straight toward the gate, insisting there was no time to explain. Determined, he told her he'd bring the squad back himself, leaving her bewildered as he disappeared into the gate. Inside the dungeon, the floor was littered with the carcasses of magic beasts, a grim testament to the strike squad's battles. They now stood before the boss room, but something was wrong. No matter what they tried, the door wouldn't budge, even their magic proving useless. Frustration grew as they debated their next move, unwilling to turn back after coming so far. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, Jin Woo. His unexpected arrival startled the group, who initially didn't recognize him. Jin Woo calmly introduced himself as the survivor of the infamous double dungeon. One of the hunters, recognizing his name, whispered in awe, "Sung Jin Woo, the S-rank hunter. The group's surprise quickly turned to alarm as Jin Woo warned them of the danger they were in, urging them to leave immediately. Despite the C-rank classification, he sensed something far more perilous lurking ahead. Ignoring their disbelief, Jin Woo stepped forward to inspect the door. A notification appeared. Only he could see it. It revealed that the gate to the Kartanen temple was locked and required the black key to open. Jin Woo quickly understood that this dungeon was different from his past experiences, requiring him to use the key. As soon as he inserted it, the door creaked open, revealing the path forward. The strike squad was stunned. After all their efforts to open the door, Jin Woo had done it with ease. Still, some members of the squad, especially from the Dragon Guild, were defiant. They reminded Jin Woo that they had purchased the raid permit for this dungeon, and even though he was an S-rank, he had no right to tell them what to do. Jin Woo, understanding their position, told them he wouldn't stop them from entering, but warned them of the dangers. One hunter, eager to prove his bravery, stepped forward and entered the room. As soon as the man crossed the threshold, a notification popped up, only visible to Jin Woo. It warned that the person without the key had been denied access. Instantly, a massive sword swung down from the ceiling, aimed directly at the hunter's head. But before it could strike, Jin Woo swiftly pulled him back, saving his life just in time. The sword crashed into the ground, shattering the stone tiles beneath it. Terrified, the squad members screamed as monstrous doorkeepers, guardians of the temple, attacked. Jin Woo wasted no time, throwing the frightened hunter out of the room. He turned to the rest of the squad and warned them again. These monsters were far more dangerous than they realized. He urged them to report to the Hunter Association that this was a double dungeon and to leave immediately. Once the squad stood in silence, Jin Woo stepped through the door, alone. A notification confirmed that the one who held the key had entered. The door slammed shut behind him with a heavy thud. The room Jin Woo entered was massive, its sheer size overwhelming. Towering statues lined the walls, each one intricately carved and standing as silent sentinels. At the far end, a colossal statue loomed ominously over the space. Everything looked just as Jin Woo remembered from his previous encounter, but something felt different this time. Jin Woo himself had changed. With his newfound strength, he could now see the statues for what they truly were. They weren't magic beasts as they had seemed before. They were mere puppets, controlled by something far more sinister. As Jin Woo's sharp senses scanned the room, he detected a hidden presence, an aura so dark and malevolent that it would have been impossible to notice before. Jin Woo approached one particular statue, the only one holding a stone tablet. Unlike the others, this one exuded an eerie aura. As he drew closer, he spoke. It was you. The statue remained still, offering no response. Frustration surged within Jin Woo, and just as he was about to question further, something chilling happened. The statue's lips curled into a smile, its red eyes flickering to life. At last, you have arrived? A twisted voice echoed through the hall, laced with satisfaction. The time for answers had finally come. Meanwhile, across Japan, the nation was glued to their screens, eagerly watching Yuri Olaf's interview. He had promised to protect Japan from the looming threat of an S-rank gate. In Korea, Hunters Association President Go Gun-hee also watched the broadcast, his face etched with concern. He wasn't fully convinced that Yuri could seal such a powerful gate, but one thing was certain. If Yuri failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. Chairman Go Gun-hee turned to his assistant, Woo Jin-chul, and asked for an update on Hunter Sung Jin Woo's recent activities. Jin-chul handed over a list, explaining that Jin Woo had been busy raiding numerous gates around Seoul. The Ajin Guild, Jin Woo's personal guild, had requested permits for all the gates listed. Gun-hee raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It was unusual for a small, newly formed guild to target so many gates that were typically controlled by major guilds like White Tiger, Hunters, and Fiend. Jin-chul noted that some friction might arise because of this, but Gun-hee simply chuckled at the thought. The idea that a single man's guild could rival a major guild was both amusing and fascinating. Jin Chul added that the Arjin Guild had also requested to handle nearby gates for the next week, though the reasons were unclear. Without seeing any issue, Gunhee agreed without hesitation. Just as they finished discussing, Jin Chul's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He asked for permission to step aside, which Gunhee granted as he himself had an appointment to attend. Jin Chul answered the call, and his expression quickly turned serious. The caller reported alarming news. A new gate had appeared at the same school where a group of orcs had attacked before. Even more shocking was the discovery of a double dungeon inside the gate. The final detail left Jin Chul stunned. Hunter Sung Jin Woo had entered the double dungeon. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Jin Woo stood before a colossal statue with 6 wings, resembling an angel holding a stone slate. The wind howled through the vast hall, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Without warning, the slate began to crack, and in a sudden, violent motion, the statue smashed it into pieces. Debris flew around Jin Woo as the remnants crumbled at his feet. The statue spoke, acknowledging that Jin Woo had finally arrived. It seemed to mock the importance of the slate's commandments, hinting that they might not have mattered at all. Jin Woo's eyes narrowed, and he asked if it was truly acceptable to destroy something so significant. But the statue corrected him, explaining that while the commandments once held meaning, they were now obsolete. Jin Woo, growing impatient, demanded to know if the statue was the one who had summoned him to this place. With a sinister grin, the statue confirmed that it had indeed called him here. However, when Jin Woo asked if the statue was a monster, it dismissed the question, telling him he was focusing on the wrong thing. The statue clapped its hands, drawing Jin Woo's attention elsewhere. It suggested that instead of questioning the statue's identity, Jin Woo should have been asking about his own. This revelation marked the beginning of Jin Woo's final test. As the sound of stone cracking filled the room, the other statues began to turn their heads toward him. Slowly, they stepped off their pedestals, weapons raised, ready to attack. Jin Woo, always prepared, summoned his shadow soldiers to fight. But before they could act, the statue snapped its fingers, stopping them in their tracks. This test was meant for Jin Woo alone. No help, no shortcuts. A notification appeared, informing him that all his job-exclusive skills, potions, and rewards from leveling up or completing quests were now restricted. Everything that had once given him an edge in combat was disabled. The statue emphasized that it was only interested in evaluating Jin Woo's personal strength, not the abilities of his shadow soldiers. Jin Woo frowned at each restriction, but there was no time to dwell on it. The advantages he had relied on were now gone, leaving him with only his own strength. He couldn't leave until the test was complete, so he prepared to face the challenge ahead with nothing but his raw power.